Hello and welcome everybody to, I think this is the penultimate session of this Connected Fleets conference this afternoon. We have with us today a full house. We have three colleagues from Mixed Telematics. We have with us Richard Adams, Catherine Lewis and Brodie van Berg. And we also have Carl Hanson, who is the Group Asset Director with Wincanton. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
We will open this session, obviously, with a short presentation from Mix, and then afterwards there will be an open conversation between Mix and Carl. If you have any questions as an audience, please do put them in the chat, and we will try to address them at the end of the slot, so in about 25 minutes. Of course, if we can, we will try to address them, and I will try to moderate them into your direction. So without any further ado, I think, Catherine, you have the click button for the presentation, so I hand it over to you. Enjoy this session, and I'll be back in about 20 to 25 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sven, and welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I am Catherine Lewis. I am the executive responsible for technology at Mixed Telematics. I'm based in Cape Town in sunny South Africa, and I'm joined by my colleague Richard Adams, who is based in the UK. He's responsible for sales and customer success in Europe. As Sven mentioned, we will be facilitating a Q&A session, but before that, I'd like to recap where we stand from a technology point of view when we're talking about cameras. Traditional video telematic systems provided footage that was most often used as evidence in insurance claims and input into things like driver training. It gave great visibility to fleet managers to see what was going on inside the cab and on the road. There's nothing quite like seeing something with your own eyes. Jonathan spoke about this in his session this morning. Our customers use video footage to exonerate their drivers and repudiate claims with great success. This was very valuable to them, and many of our customers achieved a very high payback on their investment in our solutions. Some even became self-insured. But everything about classic or traditional video telematics is reactive. So fleet managers could understand what and see what had happened, but they couldn't stop it from happening. And that's the key difference that we now have with AI-driven video telematic solutions. It helps fleet managers become proactive rather than reactive. Now, with AI and machine vision, managers and drivers are actually empowered to prevent incidents from happening in the first place, thus improving driver safety, road safety, and reducing risk. With this new technology, these AI solutions can detect fatigue, distracted driving, unsafe driving, following distances, and other risky driving behavior. In-cab video and visual and audio alerts warn drivers so that they can take proactive preventative action or change their behavior to avoid potential accidents or even stop driving if it is unsafe for them to continue doing so. For improved driver safety and reduced costs, preventing incidents is far better than understanding what happened afterwards. And the new technology facilitates this. With AI, we can prevent what happened from happening. With that, I'd like to hand over to Richard to introduce our panel.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm delighted to be part of this event as founding partners and looking forward to our debate regarding AI cameras for driver safety and fleet managers. I hope you've enjoyed my colleagues' presentations so far today. It's certainly been an excellent event. We have around about 20 minutes. We'll debate some key discussion points and we'll also encourage everyone within the audience to ask questions, as we've mentioned. So firstly, let me introduce our guest today. So we have Carl Hanson from Wincanton. Carl is the Group Operations Director for Wincanton. who are the leading supply chain partner for British Business and responsible for group-wide fleet strategies. Carl has extensive experience in commercial and operational management. He's responsible for driving safety and efficiency across these operations. Carl joined Wincanton back in 2016, and their behavioural change programme has significantly improved the safety of the drivers and saved millions of pounds through reducing accidents and improving MPG. We also have Brodie von Berg from MIX MEA. So Brodie has been active in the telematics industry for the last 15 years, working with customers on a global basis to improve road safety performance through the application of telematics and other safety controls. So it should be certainly a lot of experience around the room, a lot of good debate coming this way right now. So let's kick this off. First of all, if I can ask Carl to consider the first question. So Carl, welcome. Lovely to see you today. Why do you see the use of telematics being important to your business?
Richard, I think this is what you've touched upon just a minute ago, actually, and what Catherine's touched upon. Two key reasons for us. Within Wincanton, safety is our top priority, and the technology that we've installed into the vehicles has become a massive tool to help us improve the safety of our drivers and the safety of the general public. And that's been a huge change program for us. And probably the other added benefit to that as well is actually, and I'm sure we'll come on to it in a bit, but actually the relationship that we now have with our drivers has far improved because we care, and it demonstrates we care because we're talking about safety. The second big benefit is a bit of a byproduct and a bit of something what Catherine's just talked about now. So the videos that we have in the cabs do help us in the event of an accident, and unfortunately we are involved in accidents. I am glad to say that many of them are not our fault, and the benefits we've seen of being able to defend those claims have been huge over the last 4 years. So two key things. One is, how do we prevent those accidents from happening in the first place? And the second one, if we are unfortunately in an accident, how we can defend our position and effectively reduce those accident claims against ourselves.
Fantastic. That's great. Catherine, I think you had a question you wanted to ask Carl?
Yeah, I think, Carl, you're exactly that sort of perfect customer who used traditional telematics, and now you're seeing potential value in AI-based solutions. What additional benefits do you think you'll get from the newer technology?
So the old technology, absolutely, Catherine, you touched upon it earlier. It gives us the events that effectively allow us to identify the risks and, if you like, have positive conversations with the drivers around making them aware of what those risks could lead to. And that's how we change the driver's behavior. The challenge is with those events is they're all things that have happened, and they're things that we can see. And, you know, the video evidence is really, really useful to actually say that it was real and it wasn't somebody just pulling out on you, which is generally the excuse that we get from our drivers, and the fact that it was somebody else's fault. But the AI, for me, takes it to the next level because it tells us what we can't see. It tells us in an event that the telematics on board the vehicle cannot see and can't know. So, you know, the simple one for me is about whether somebody's tailgating somebody or driving far too close to them at the various speeds or various conditions. And the AI cameras can be another leading indicator, as I call them, to help us understand whether, yes, somebody might be driving in with the speed limit, but actually are they still driving safely? And again, like human beings, we like to take shortcuts and we like to beat the system. And I think our drivers probably know the existing system. And actually, are they just developing new habits to beat the system, but maybe still driving unsafely? And I think, yes, the AI is the next stage because we can then see stuff that the telematics system can't.
Thanks, Carl. Could I take you back a couple of steps, sort of down memory lane, but it still exists now as well, of course. How do you introduce the technology to your drivers? I mean, we have heard today a few points from different presentations around how to how that can be seen as a barrier, but how did you overcome that?
And Richard, to be honest, as well mentioned earlier, it's about safety. So safety is the top priority in Wincanton, and it means that we can start to have a good conversation with our drivers and a positive conversation with our drivers. So it's all about using the technology to form the right conversations to allow them to be aware of what those risks are and effectively, do something about it together. This is a journey for which we've been on together as drivers and as managers to effectively improve their safety. And we just use the technology to share with them what has happened and then effectively elaborate what could happen. And then how do we do something about it? The one beautiful thing about it is once they can see the video images, they know that they can't lie. And that process, that what I call a beat, and that effectively, it's got to be a beat, it's got to be something that you do regularly, means that effectively then they start to change their behaviors and they start to understand and they stop fighting and they start working with you. So they stop fighting against it and start working with you to get you where you both want to hopefully get to, and that's improving everybody's safety. And
is part of that working together, that collaboration with the drivers, then is that a part of the driver debriefing and your training as well with the drivers?
Yeah, I mean, the technology, there's quite a few systems out there whereby you're getting what I call a lot of false imagery and false events. The technology joined together means that you don't have those false events. So everything that we've set the technology up to means that if we see the video footage, then it's something that we really want to see. And we will take the drivers through each one of those events. And to be honest, Richard, we asked the drivers two simple questions, really. How did this happen? And then we make them aware of what the risk could be if something did happen. And the second question we ask them is, how do you do something about this not happening again? And, to a certain degree, and I'm not taking any discredit away from any of my trainers, but when you start having those questions, people can, these my drivers are professional drivers. They know how to drive, and they know really how to sort the problem out themselves. But it just brings the accountability back onto them by just asking those two simple questions, bearing in mind they can't lie because everybody can see the footage. And the positive thing is, we're not looking through hours worth of footage for each driver. We are potentially looking through, 2 or 3 clips per drive. And, as I say, we've been on this journey for many a year. We don't really have much video. We don't really have many video evidence to go through. I'm happy to say on a day-by-day basis, because the behaviour has been changed, the habits have been changed, but most importantly, the drivers know that we're still looking, because if any new driver that walks through the business goes through the same process. And the positive things, I come back to it. The positive engagement with our drivers means that the drivers know that we care. The drivers actually feel that their day is far more relaxed because they're not racing round. Safer driving means more efficient driving, and it means less hassle and less stress for our drivers. So they buy in pretty quickly, which is good.
That's really good to hear. Thanks so much, Carol. Catherine, I think you had some questions for Brodie as well.
Yep, let me. Good evening, Brodie. I know it's late for you. Thank you for joining us as well. Brodie, you've also had considerable success with video telematics solutions, particularly in Down Under. And could you tell us about some of the benefits that our customers have experienced across various industries?
Sure, thanks, Catherine, and glad to be here, no matter what time of day. Look, I think I'll just start by saying it's a very, very subtle change for customers that are already leveraging our video-based solutions, but it's a substantial step change in safety performance that they're realising. And we view it from the perspective of a safety triangle. And so previously, before video, we were looking at harsh brake or a harsh braking event as an identifier to a driver presenting with at-risk behaviours. And that's all we knew. So we would see thousands of events at the bottom of the triangle, and then they would lead to, the occasional near miss, and then dozens of those before we had a reported incident or a motor vehicle crash. And what the technology is enabling is us to distinguish those high-risk behaviours. So we're monitoring the actual following distance. We're not speculating if they're tailgating, we can see it. We're monitoring the fatigue and are their eyes blinking and closing. It's real fatigue, we're not speculating. Distraction, everyone has the distractions in the cab, whether it's phones, screens, or other distractions. And we're actually seeing those live. And so while previously we were relying on things like harsh braking, I think to Carl's point, it's very targeted. You're not sifting through data anymore. this is what happened. And then you can have those real conversations with the drivers. In addition to that, it's even more powerful for the driver as an aid. And the feedback is the drivers want more of it, because when they're at risk of falling asleep behind the wheel, they're getting an alert and it's preventing them from being involved in an incident. When they happen to be distracted, it's telling them they're distracted and pulling their attention back to the road. So there's a lot of benefits driven for the driver as well as the organisation to manage all the data that's coming through. We've definitely seen customers benefit with video. We have a very good customer in Australia, as an example, a vertically integrated company that does everything from plantations to pulp to producing paper and wood products. And their transport business is significant. And they've actually been able to transition from using an insurer to self-insured, because they've been able to get such a hold on the risk, being able to quantify risk and being able to take proactive steps with the drivers to prevent crashes, that they've had the confidence to do that. And you can only imagine, as a transport operator, if you could wipe out your insurance premiums, it's a substantial benefit.
Thanks, Brodie. I have another question for you, and actually it reminded me of the first time I met Carl. I actually heard him speak at an event a few years ago, and he said something that always stuck with me. And he said, you either change your drivers, you have to change your drivers or change your drivers. And it was such a good nugget. And one of the questions I have for you is, how do our customers engage with their drivers and encourage them to embrace the technology rather than seeing it as just another form of intrusive Big Brother?
Sure, absolutely. And I think video, our first venture into video telematics, was exactly that. It was perceived as Big Brother on steroids and riding constant alongside with the drivers. So what we've seen in the early adopters, certainly our transport customers had to deal with unions, engage the unions, present the case for employing this technology and demonstrate the safety benefits. And once they're able to get past that point and deploy the technology into their fleet, the drivers became the advocates. The incidents which they suffered, I've got countless video clips of customer drivers being overtaken by a vehicle and cut off, and the vehicle coming in front of the truck and causing an incident. And roadside, they're able to verify their innocence. There's no contest, and that became a very important factor for the drivers to have that protection. And it's no different now with AI layered onto that video. We're seeing drivers who want the protection. They want to go to work and they want to come home safe, knowing that they're protected while they're driving. I think the level of, I'd call it integration, which we've provided with our MyMix tool, which is the driver app where every driver has full visibility to their performance score. So both safety and efficiency. And so at the end of every trip, when they're looking at their scores, they're comparing and ranking themselves to their peers in the organisation. And it's no longer just about harsh braking or fuel consumption. It's about the other events that we can detect with AI. So who is getting distracted? And then we can weight the scores. So if someone's constantly distracted, it's a much higher risk than someone who maybe, as a slightly reduced following distance. So we can actually weight those and give a real credible score using our flexible scoring. So I think that engagement with the driver, to be able to have an aid in the cab, and it's perceived as an aid, no longer a Big Brother tool, and to be able to self-manage and see their own trips, see their own data. And the thing that we really love is the driver can see their own video of what happened to them in the trip that they've just done. And it's very, very, very powerful stuff.
Thanks, Brodie. And it's great to see that it's positively received by the drivers. I think that might become even more important with these driver shortages that we're experiencing globally. Carl, earlier this morning, Jonathan, my colleague, presented, and he made a very interesting statement. He said, a safety-centric culture moves an organization to change. And that is a much better motivation for change rather than a serious accident which results in an organization changing. And Wincanton has always prided themselves on being one of those companies that take safety very seriously. And that is first and foremost why you make these investments in technology. But what are some of the other benefits, the side effects that Wincanton has enjoyed thanks to these solutions?
Probably many, actually, Catherine, but probably obviously the bigger ones, if we're talking about an investment return perspective, as we talked about, safer driving equals efficient driving, and efficient driving for us means millions of pounds worth of savings in fuel. So we've trended it based on control periods for each contract, and we've seen fuel improvements across our different operations from 5% up to 17% improvement in MPG. That's resulted in, I think we're over £5 million worth of fuel benefit now over the years. Accidents that we've just talked about. So, since we started this journey, our accidents are down over 50%, which is, again, a really big number for us, given the number of trucks that we operate and the kind of costs to fix a truck these days. And then again, as I talked about earlier, being able to defend our position. And we're over £700,000 worth of defended claims on just insurance alone. The challenge, obviously, from an insurance and accidents perspective, is difficult to measure something that's not happened, but we can trend, what that saving is, but we can trend, where we are year on year on reductions of accidents across our business. And that actually includes going into some different sectors, some home delivery sectors, which are notoriously around towns and cities. So you'd expect more accidents. It's notoriously higher turnover of drivers. So our ability to work with the drivers needs to be quicker. We need to respond quicker because we don't know how long they're going to be with us. But again, they're, reputationally, they're driving for Wincanton. And therefore, and again, safety piece, we care. We absolutely care, and we want everybody to go home safely. So those are some of the kind of tangible benefits. The intangible ones has got to be effectively to do with the drivers and the relationship that's built up now between line managers and drivers about having those positive conversations. The ability for us to be able to track the assets and demonstrate to the customer what we're doing and how we work. Even things like maintenance. A truck on a road costs us an awful lot of money when it's off the road. And we're tracking now any vehicle that goes into any one of our repair agents, and the clock starts ticking because we know when it's broken that geofence. So we're doing lots and lots of good stuff with all the data that we're getting from the system, all of which is helping our bottom line and keeping our people safe.
Thanks, Carl. One other point I don't think we've touched on is we've spoken, of course, a lot about your drivers, and it's great, and it's fantastic the interaction you've got. But how are you finding they're using their time and using the footage themselves in their own time? So, are you seeing a benefit there? Are you getting some good feedback from the team?
Yeah, arguably, Richard, it's just turned into kind of gamification. Historically, been involved in telematics and rolling out these sorts of programs for many years. And, before video, we used to roll out a telematics program, link it to safety, and we'd see a benefit, over 4 months, and maybe we see a 4% benefit. As I've just talked about, the benefits we've seen with the videos, the initial videos was anything between 5 and 18% benefit, but we were able to achieve that in weeks, purely because, again, the drivers couldn't lie. There was no point blaming the vehicle or anybody else. That you could just get far better conversations earlier and quicker. And, now that the drivers have got those videos themselves, they don't have to be waiting for a daily or weekly debrief, just speeds up the whole process. And again, the app, I think was possibly the most important tool of everything that we've done, because we get to see who's engaged and who isn't engaged. Any workplace survey talking about people looks at engagement, and the app, when telling us how many times a driver's logged in every day and what they've seen, gives us a huge benefit because we know who to target and who's not engaged. And again, coming back to the AI piece, we know what we don't know now. which is really, really powerful. And as I say, it's all to do with speed and size of value based on that knowledge and doing something about it.
That's really positive. That's fantastic. Very conscious of time. I do, if I can squeeze in one quick question. We did touch on the driver retention and the challenge that we've got just now. So do you see the use of this technology having a positive effect on the challenges you have just now?
Yeah, I mean, I can't, Richard, I can't probably put a number to it, but we do know that we do have high engagement scores with the drivers, especially where we roll out the program. You know, the one big benefit is going to be in our new world moving forward. We've got to employ hundreds of new drivers into the industry, and the technology is only going to help us do that. And typically, what would take 8 weeks worth of mentoring plus in order to get a driver on the road, we don't need to do that anymore, because we can actively use the technology to support that and help us do that, and effectively point my resources at any new drivers where we see we can help it. Just to pick up on Brodie's point, one of the things that we've used your cameras for is a little button so the drivers can press it so they can record the footage. So instead of the system being Big Brother for them, they can actually use it to their advantage. And again, from a training and development perspective, we'd absolutely encourage them to do that. And if they've got a challenge, take us the footage, phone us up and tell us what your challenge is, and we'll talk you through it. Some massive benefits in how we use technology moving forward to assist the drivers in the workforce.
Thank you ever so much for that, Carl. That's really great feedback, and I'm sure everyone will find that really interesting. I'm very conscious of time, but I'm just wondering, Catherine, is there any questions that you wanted to answer from the audience there?
Yes, actually, we do have one, Richard, from Sharif. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I think, as you said, your question there was partially answered, but if I can elaborate, it does depend on the solution, so I can only speak for ours. In terms of privacy, we support a range of privacy options. We're obviously well aware of the different requirements and the different territories in which we sell our solutions. Even if video is recorded on a rolling buffer, it's not all downloaded. You can restrict who gets to see it. You can compartmentalize the data, so only specific event-based data is sent, not all of the data. And we also have mechanisms for excluding data during certain times of the day and deleting data so that we don't infringe on a driver's privacy. Some of our customers don't record in-cab footage, so we can raise the events such as distracted driving or mobile phone use or fatigue without actually recording footage. We can still detect it, but we don't necessarily share the footage. So there are a number of different options that we have that we can deploy to meet the requirements of different legislation.
Thanks, Catherine. I think, Sven, do we need to wrap up? Is that why you?
I think we slowly do, but I also had about 20 questions I've written down myself, so that's a little bit unfortunate that I can't ask them right now. But just to round it up, perhaps. First of all, Carl, also from our side, I think it's amazing what you're doing, and it's amazing how you put, as a company, how you put safety really above all. Indeed, there are extra benefits that might come with the use of these innovations, but effectively saying, okay, well, safety is what comes first. I think that's the way any company should look at mobility. But it's still unique how you mention it and how you put that forward. So congratulations on that one. Perhaps if I may, just one general question to Catherine, Richard, Brodie. Looking at AI video telematics, I mean, what we understand, I think I get a good understanding of the benefits they can bring today. What can we expect in the future? So I'm thinking, will there come a time where there is a link between the AI video telematics solution and ADAS systems? I mean, what can we expect? What's next, so to speak?
Yeah, definitely, Sven. I think we already do what is called passive ADAS. So we detect forward collision, driving over the yellow lane, things like that. forward distance measurements, and all of that. So a lot of that is actually around already. But I think what will come in future is probably exactly as we saw with the telematics going more as an OE service. We'll probably see a lot of that eventually being built into the vehicle, and then companies such as ourselves providing value-added services and software on top of it.
Great. Cool.
If I may, Sven, I'd just like to thank our panel for attending today, taking time out of their very busy days to share what I would say is very valuable insights. It was very insightful debate. I think it's certainly clear that AI, video telematics, do provide fleets with increased ability to drive down risk. Also significantly increase driver safety, ensuring that there is additional valuable data there. So we continue to ensure that we are getting the right data to the right people at the right time to ensure that we can all make the right decisions. So from all of us at Mixed Telematics, to you all in Europe and around the world, I thank you very, very much indeed.
And we thank you guys. Thank you very much. Thank you for this very interesting session. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. To the audience, obviously there is the last session that is available. So just go to the left-hand side, click sessions, and select your last session to join. And then afterwards, we'll meet up back on main stage for the final conclusions of this Connected Fleets conference. Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody here. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.